In October 2025, various media outlets and social media users claimed that the Vatican had opened a prayer room for Muslims inside the Vatican Apostolic Library. The Catholic news agency confirmed the claim was true, but with important context. The library indeed allows Muslim scholars to use a room for prayer while conducting research, but it is not a public Muslim prayer room. It's a simple, carpeted space reserved for visiting Muslim academics who request a place to pray. The initiative came from the scholars themselves, not from a Vatican plan. Sensational headlines and misconceptions. Several headlines, though not technically false, created a misleading impression that the Vatican had officially built or dedicated a new Islamic prayer facility. Reports from multiple outlets suggested a major interfaith project, while in reality, the arrangement was a small courtesy for a handful of visiting scholars. This framing caused confusion and outrage online. One Catholic deacon called it a total betrayal of our Lord Jesus Christ, and other conservative commentators labeled it a quiet storm within Catholic circles. The misunderstanding largely arose from the notion that the Vatican had created a permanent public worship space for Muslims, when it had not. How the prayer room came about. The story emerged after an interview on the 8th of October 2025 in La Repubblica with Father Don Giacomo Cardinali, Vice Prefect of the Vatican Apostolic Library. He described the library as a universal institution and the most secular of the entire Holy See. When asked if scholars from other religions visit, he replied, "Of course, some Muslim scholars asked us for a room with a carpet to pray, so we gave it to them." He emphasized that the library also preserves rare Qurans and manuscripts from many world religions, reaffirming its universal scholarly nature. The space, he clarified, was simply a room with a carpet, provided as a practical act of hospitality. The room in question is not a public mosque or chapel. Only accredited researchers in the Apostolic Library may access it, and it is used occasionally by Muslim visitors during their research. It is, therefore, a private accommodation, not an officially designated interfaith space. The arrangement was made solely upon request and not through a Vatican initiative. British media summarized the situation clearly. The Vatican granted Muslim scholars requests for a prayer room. Thus, the claim that the Vatican opened a Muslim prayer room is true. The context is key. It's a low-profile accommodation, not a symbolic shift in Vatican policy. Inside the Vatican, officials reportedly see the move as a minor act of hospitality. One curator remarked, "The manuscripts themselves speak louder than any prayer rug," implying the library's scholarly mission far outweighs symbolic debates. The gesture aligns with the library's identity as a global center of learning that welcomes all faiths. Outside the Vatican, however, opinions have diverged. Supporters call the decision a positive sign of dialogue and inclusion, consistent with the Vatican's mission to welcome researchers of every belief. Given that the library holds religious texts from across civilizations, allowing prayer for Muslim scholars seems natural. Critics, on the other hand, argue that it blurs the Catholic identity of the Holy See. They see the creation of a prayer space for another religion inside the Pope's library as a potential confusion of mission. Some fear it could set a precedent if Muslims have a prayer room. Would Jewish, Hindu, or Buddhist scholars be granted similar spaces? This debate reflects broader tensions between interfaith openness and the preservation of Catholic distinctiveness. Some also raised issues of reciprocity. While the Vatican extends such courtesies, non-Muslims are strictly barred from Islamic holy sites like Mecca, and Christians face worship restrictions in several Muslim-majority countries. Supporters counter that the Church's hospitality stems from its Christian values, which should not depend on others' behavior. The Vatican Apostolic Library does have a small, carpeted room used by Muslim scholars for prayer, but it's not a public worship area, only a quiet space for visiting researchers. The decision was reactive, responding to scholars' needs, not a formal Vatican initiative. The controversy illustrates how a simple act of hospitality can be exaggerated by sensational headlines. The reality is modest. A centuries-old library known for its universality quietly made a respectful accommodation for scholars of another faith. Within the Vatican, it's viewed as a gesture of goodwill, not a theological statement.